In Paper Mario for the Nintendo 64, you start the game with the ability to jump, but with no hammer in sight until partway through the prologue. For all of it, you're without action commands until Twink gives you the lucky star from Princess Peach, as you're tasked with rescuing her from Bowser for the umpteenth time, gaining the ability to do more damage with good timing, and reducing incoming damage from enemies. Following the events of Mario's first journey, Luigi would shortly begin his journey to rescue Princess Eclair of the Waffle Kingdom, and he, in his infinite generosity, swiped Mario's lucky star to aid in his quest to succeed, leaving Mario and his partners drastically less capable of defending themselves throughout their arduous adventure. I know, the game has prompts that exist on screen when attacking, but unlike the Grim Reaper...
You understood what he was saying?
Not really, but I'm pretty good at reading subtitles backwards.
Yeah, Mario can't do that. So, is it possible to beat Paper Mario with the 1000-year door without action commands? It's safe to say that if you've been around the block long enough, you may think that the answer is that it isn't because of a particular sour spot in the sky. But I'm gonna ask you to let me cook. Much like popcorn, no two challenge runs will be the same. Of course, no disrespect intended towards Bringle, his video was superb, but I'd feel bad if I didn't put my money where my mouth was. The rules are as simple as can be. We're not allowed to use action commands whether for offense or for defense. This significantly nerfs the damage you can deal from moves like Power Bounce, and removes both standard and super guards as options in battle, and we'll see just how much this changes the game for us as we go. So without further ado, it's showtime! Having no action commands, Lord Crump's first fight doesn't really have much variance in how it can go. Whether you use your jump or your hammer, you only ever do 1 damage, while when Crump attacks you, you always receive 1 damage in return. Your odds of losing this are nil unless you really went out of your way to make this fight possible to lose. Which I didn't, so let's continue. Immediately after rescuing Goombella, she comes to join us as a partner, and as a partner I would dare say that she's...
No. It's now illegal.
Yeah, she's a baddie, and I mean that in the worst possible way. The only moves that she has for the whole game are multi-bunk and head-bunk, multi-bunk in particular being head-bunk except the cost FPDUs. Basically, she's no more than a more restricted Mario. So with our new friend without benefits, we go to Professor Frankly and dive into Rogueport Sewers to fight the first real battle, the Goomba Trio. Overall very simple. We spend the first time double teaming the regular Goomba, and the fight ends on turn 2 because after Mario hammered the spiky Goomba, the sage backdrop falls, knocking out the spiky Goomba, and damaging the parry Goomba, letting Goombella follow up to knock it out. It's not much longer till we reach the 1000-year door and gain our first special move in Sweet Treat. Now without action commands, most special moves are functionally identical except they just cost more or less SP to actually activate. Sweet Treat meanwhile is actually one of the more useful ones because it basically functions as a tasty tonic that heals both Mario and his partner's status elements. I mean, yeah, we can't use it to say heal HP and FP, but if say our partner was frozen and Mario wasn't, we can just use Sweet Treat to heal their frozen status and there you go. Not much, but take what you can get. And I make sure to take a few items with me when going to fight Blooper. Because without action commands, we're naturally going to have very slow fights in this video. Buying Fire Flowers would not be a bad idea. For Blooper, however, we only need the Fire Flower we're able to find in the overworld, alongside 2 headbunks from Goombella and 2 power smashes from Mario. Assuming nothing goes awry in this fight, we'll be able to finish the Blooper off and then complete the prologue. And with it now behind us, I feel the need to mention this because I want my channel to grow, but if you're enjoying this video and you like seeing Paper Mario TTYD content, note that I make tons of videos on the game, and I would encourage you to subscribe to the channel if that's what you're interested in. It would also help me a lot because I'm trying to reach 10,000 subscribers before the end of 2024. Thank you for your time, let's continue the challenge. So chapter 1 outside the actual boss of the chapter is not difficult. I did earlier buy some badges like Piercing Blow and Power Jump though, because if I'm being real, after Blooper, Power Smash is just not good. We're given 2 PAL blocks to deal with both the Bald Clefs and the Bristles in Shrunk Fortress, but I prefer to save one of my PAL blocks for later, so what I instead do here is just repeatedly use Piercing Blow to KO the Bald Clefs. My FP may be limited, yes, but that's what Turtley Leaves are good for. I'm not even really worried about damage here because with Goombella in the front, she can just defend and basically make it so that we cannot take damage at all. Obviously though, the Bristles need something a little more indirect in how you approach them. So we just use a PAL block. And I figured, I could use the star points. So I failed the following quiz so I could take out the clefs here as well. We continue to dump our items on enemies in Shrunk Fortress with the sewers, where we had to fight fuzzies. Fire Flower the first fight, it does perfect damage to all 4, so why the heck not? The second fight, meanwhile, was just repeatedly using my jump and headbump, and this required dealing with only one fuzzy at a time. Otherwise, the fuzzies would very easily be able to match the damage we'd be doing to them, except they'd be healing while we wouldn't be. On the flip side, Gold Fuzzy has 10 HP but can't heal off of attacking you, which is actually very strange. To make this fight fast though, I had both Mario and Goombella do basic attacks the first turn, and on the second and third turn, while Goombella was doing her thing, I had Mario use Power Jump twice. This allowed us to win the fight in only 3 turns. Which is actually very good because with the damage the Fuzzy Horde could do to us because we can't guard, this otherwise could very well have gone either way. Goombella's really only barely useful enough to justify having on the team, which sadly for her ain't gonna really cut it anymore because at the next part we get Koops.
Approved!
My god, what a glow up from Goombella. He does suffer from his own weaknesses, like not being able to target airborne enemies, as well as the very real possibility of being flipped over because of the fact that he's a Koopa, but I dare say he more than makes up for that off the virtue of having a defense point, which is exclusive to him, as well as simply invaluable moves like Power Shell, which I can guarantee you will be seeing a lot throughout this video. This early on though, where our badges are still limited, unfortunately Koops isn't that much better than Goombella. Case in point, he doesn't really make Red Bones any easier. Instead for here, we resort to a Fire Flower, followed up by Mario using Power Jump. With that taken care of, I get some Shine Sprites to rank up Koops of Super Rank, but not before taking Gus out first. Most of his turns were spent focusing more on Koops than Mario, which is a-okay with me. Meanwhile, on my end, it was just using Shell Toss, and of course my basic hammer attack. At least after I ran out of FP to use Power Smash. Now that I do have Koops ranked up, he has 15 max HP, and an additional attack point. Also a new move, but we'll talk about that new move later. For now, I return to Petalburg to get Mega Rush P, which is a badge I really want as we are now preparing to fight Hooktail. I do have the badge Attack of XR in my inventory, but I'm not using it against Hooktail because I don't enjoy using the badge here. Rather, I'd like to show a Mega Rush P here. Using Mega Rush P effectively in this game requires knowing how boss AI works. I mean, I could start fights with only 1 HP if I really wanted to, but I'm not really comfortable doing that. I like starting fights with max HP and an FP if I can help it. Of course, with some exceptions, like the Pit of 100 Trials, but that's for later. So Hooktail's AI forces her to use her Fire Breath and then Stomp on turns 1 and 2. The Fire Breath does 4 damage, the Stomp does 5. Given that, though I do lead this fight with Koops, since, you know, he's the only character I have that can damage Hooktail without using FP, I immediately afterwards switch him out for Goombella. Now this may seem strange, but I promise you I have a reason behind this. With Goombella still being at base rank, she's at the perfect HP value to be brought into peril at the end of turn 2. And when that happens, her head bonks do 0 damage no more. Rather, they start doing 5. We naturally can't keep her out without actually expecting her to get knocked out immediately afterwards though, so I swap back into Koops and then proceed to keep using Power Smash and Shell Toss to do damage. Though mostly Power Smash, and I did bring some Turtley Leaves also to make that a little bit easier for us. Once Hooktail is at an HP value where Headbonk will finish her off, I bring Goombella back in to do just that. Shortly following that, Hooktail eats her Toto's Crunch. Goombella also leads on the second phase, doing another 5 damage to Hooktail, but afterwards I'm going to want to switch her out. Yeah, Mario has only 2 HP left, but I'm not really worried about that. I have a Life Shroom, and though I won't allow myself to buy more, I feel pretty confident that we'll have enough. Though here, I got the best of both worlds, and Hooktail instead used her Stomp on Koops, which despite him having only 3 HP left, doesn't KO him thanks to Last Stand P. And from there, it's just one more Peril Partner attack, and we win. Pretty decisively if I may say so myself. This sees us rescue the assumed to be late Koops' father, and we get the special move Earth Shimmer from getting our first Crystal Star. As an attack, it's pretty lackluster. It does only 1 damage to all enemies, and the enemies themselves must be on the ground. Sorry to say, but already, I think we already have better options than this. For example, after completing Chapter 1, we can find Charlatan in Roadport Square, and there's a fair few badges and items I want to pick up from him. Mega Rush, Double Pain, and the Shooting Star. Not all at once, mind you though, the only item I really care about this early on is the Shooting Star. Let's turn our attention to the future Force fights, which are now in the present, and will soon be past the Shadow Sirens. In retrospect, what I wish I did here was I got the earthquake instead, because looking back at this gameplay footage, I realized another option I had to make this fight go a lot more smoothly, while also saving a much more powerful item. But as far as how this fight went, I guess it's good enough. I resolved to eliminate Beldam turn 1 using Power Jump and the Shooting Star. With her gone, neither Vivian or Marilyn can think to use her magic attacks, and from there it's fairly easy pickings. It doesn't really matter how our current FP or HP looks, because after this fight we level up. This nets for us Flurry's necklace, which will also give us a new partner in Madame Flurry.
Approved.
A partner that I am aware that many people will dismiss, believing that she is not good. Yeah, my opinion is not very often shared amongst others. Not because I enjoy being contrarian, no, I just enjoy being right. But talking about Flurry, what can she really do in a challenge like this, where action commands are off limits? After all, without action commands, her body slam move doesn't actually do anything. And you know what? That is correct. Until Flurry is super rank, she is functionally useless as nothing more but a meat shield. Well, this gets into another quirk with Mega Rush P. And that's in that for this challenge, it enables a tactic called paralooping. Something I want to show off with Magnus Von Grapple. Now to preface this took me some time to remember how to actually do, and as a result, I lost my first attempt here. Didn't help either that I did not do a very good job keeping my items maintained. And with how often Mario was getting attacked by Magnus, yeah, things went south extremely quickly. I also ended up wasting some critical FP using Shell Shield way earlier than I really should have been. By which I mean, I shouldn't have used Shell Shield at all here, and I actually forgot how to get Flurry into peril because of the X-Fist doing so much damage, and I didn't even get into peril until Mario was already on the brink of death, where you could stick a fork in him because, yeah, he's done. When I actually got my head back on my shoulders, however, I reasoned that what I had to do after I had Mario and Cubes do their damage with Shell Toss and jumping was bring Flurry in to take the max 8 damage from the X-Fist, and then do nothing but defend for the following 3 turns. Afterwards, I'd have her appeal, and it's only then we're able to really start doing anything. Thanks to Last Stand P, Flurry will not take the full 8 damage here, and instead take only 4, landing her squarely into peril, where she also was immune to the Earthquake attack from Magnus himself. Lip Lock has a base damage of only 1, and likewise heal is only 1 HP, but with Mega Rush P backing it up, it goes from 1 to 6. With this, Flurry's HP is at 7, but 7 is still less than 8, so next turn you think she'd get knocked out, right? Well, what happens in practice actually is that the first X-Fist drops her from 7 to only 3 HP, but now she's in danger, and the second X-Fist will do only 2 damage, putting her back at only 1 HP. I think you can see where I'm going with this. Once again, Flurry proves herself to be virtually impossible to actually kill. And thanks to Mega Rush P, she basically can do the same amount of damage assuming she was Ultra rank, just roughly 4 chapters earlier. This sees us claim our second Crystal Star and learn the move Clock Out, which is completely useless to us. All it does is that it drops a bomb that inflicts stop status on ourselves for 0 turns. What's funny though is that if we had a partner that was already stopped earlier, the new duration would override the old one, and as a result, it would practically cure it. But A, this never actually came up, and B, even if this actually would be useful for that purpose, Switchy does the exact same freaking thing, while accounting for other statuses, at half the SP cost. So Clock Out, yeah, never use it. And listen, I hate to be the bearer of spoilers, but the rest of the special moves we find throughout the rest of the game are just about as useful as Clock Out is. Let's just get into Chapter 3 because I know for a fact that y'all are just dying to hear what I have to say about what we do here. And on that note, let's just cut to the chase. The Armored Harriers. How do we beat them? After all, the way they're built, they are impossible to damage for literally any partner except for Yoshi with his Gulp skill. And Yoshi himself can't use Gulp effectively because of the conditions of the rules we're playing under. With this in mind, I know you're expecting me to say that this challenge is in fact impossible to complete. So let's cut to the chase. Can you beat Paper Mario the 1000-Year Door without action commands? Well, yes. Yes you can. And I'm going to show you exactly how that's actually possible. It stands to reason that we can't battle our way to the top if we can't beat everyone in our path. With this in mind, do not under any circumstances sign Grubba's contract. If you do, congratulations, the answer is no longer yes, it is no. This is because Grubba is not Grubba, he's the freaking devil. No, what you actually want to do instead is you want to look before we even enter Westside Rogueport. Because we need to rely on a pair of glitches that will actually make this challenge possible for us to complete. The first of which is a little glitch I like to call jump storage, and by I like to call it, I mean that is the actual name of the glitch. It requires Koops and using shell toss on the right of Zesty's kitchen, holding him in place, and walking in front of the kitchen to only then let him go. We did have to walk downwards into the cutscene trigger as we use a second shell toss with Koops to avoid having Mario actually physically jump, while the game at the same time recognizes that a jump in fact was executed. Living our new lives as contact lenses vandals, we are now able to jump off the stair of Tobro's Bazaar to fly into the air, and land on top of the bar stool with the Ultra Hammer inside the chest on top of it. Now the Ultra Hammer will not help us actually beat the Armored Harriers, but what it will do is allow us to actually skip most of Chapter 3. We do this by once again meeting with Grubba, but once again not signing his contract, and then performing another glitch called Bookcase Jump, where we jump off the couch, spin jump onto the bookcase, and vent. This begins a cutscene, which makes the game think that we're no longer at the beginning of Chapter 3, and they're instead at the very end of it. And now we use our Ultra Hammer to break the vent open, discover what Grubba was actually doing with the Crystal Star, and we are now ready to fight him as Macho Grubba. As far as how this fight went, once again I'm using Mega Rush P, but I'm using another badge in Quick Change, as well as a new item in Point Swap. See, Grubba's AI is very erratic, though it is fairly predictable. What he'll do is that he'll first make it so that he'll be able to act twice in a single turn, then he'll give himself a status buff before immediately attacking afterwards. The erratic part is that the status he activates for himself is entirely up to luck, as well as who he actually targets. And my level is still fairly low, so I know for a fact it would not be wise to try and box with him straight up. So to make things easier for myself, I still have a max FP of only 5, so what I first do is have Koops use Shell Shield. This move costs 4 FP to execute, and because of no action commands, it gives Mario a 2 HP buffer, which basically is only there to take only one real hit. What's more important meanwhile is the fact that Koops has only 1 HP after the point swap, because the Shell Shield itself costs 4 FP to actually use. We once again have FP, but more importantly, Koops while in peril does 7 damage per hit. We can then quick change him out of battle and have Mario attack with his hammer attack, which does 3 damage because it's an Ultra Hammer now. Yet this is a bonus from the fact that we're forced to use glitches. We have a more powerful hammer than jump, and so for a while, this will be my preferred means of attacking. There are some bumps in the road. We see a Boo make Grubba invisible after all. But if that happens, well, there are other things I can use with my time, like a second Shell Shield. And it does help a fair bit that special moves do not really check evasion or invisibility. Of course, Mario can't always attack. If Grubba does choose to hurt him, I will have to heal, but I think we're sitting fairly pretty. And that's it for him. We now get the Gold Star, and alongside it the move Power Lift. Ever wanted to watch a game of Black Mountain will play with itself? Well, if you did, you're looking at the wrong game. Might I instead suggest looking at New Super Mario Bros. On the Nintendo DS? Just a thought. Of course, this also means skipping and getting Yoshi, but that's only temporary. We just have to play up to the Armored Harriers, watch some cutscenes that make absolutely no sense in context, lose the fight against the Invincible Behemoths, and claim our Yoshi, who I named Borp.
I don't know.
As a fighter, he's surprisingly a strictly worse Goombella. But unlike Goombella, at least he gets a little bit better when we get Stampede, though that does take a while to actually see. I honestly would not care if we didn't need him to actually make it to the Chapter 4 pipe. Which, despite the theming, I would say this chapter is actually pretty bright for us in this adventure. After all, the fight to follow versus Quintuple Question Mark is extremely easy. Though with HP this low and attack as high as it is, I mean, 4 isn't that high, but when you can't guard, it actually can be pretty noticeable. You may just have to pay a little attention if your partner's HP drops. Nonetheless, we do beat Quinn, and as a result, we get the 4th Crystal Star, giving us the new move, nothing. Which is actually pretty accurate for 2 reasons. 1, Art Attack doesn't do anything, and 2, we don't actually get the next Crystal Star, we get duped and we lose all of our partners. Except for Miss Mouse. I don't know what she's doing here. But more importantly, we have to head back to Twilight Town, and it's there we meet Vivian.
Approved!
Oh boy, this is gonna be fun. Vivian, when you don't have action commands, is an excellent partner. The only thing she loses out on when she uses Shade Fist is the property of burning, while the attack, even without the action command, is equal in damage to Mario's current hammer. This makes her indisputably the strongest partner in the game, looking at raw damage numbers alone. Koops may have her beat when it comes to PowerShell, especially in the Pit of 100 Trials, seeing that PowerShell would be half the cost of Fiery Jinx, but at the same time, you also have to remember the fact that Fiery Jinx itself can burn, and it can also hit enemies in the air. PowerShell can't do that. So quite frankly, I don't really miss any of my other partners. Vivian's arguably the best one we can get, and so now feels like a good time to fight Atomic Boo. This fight could be worrisome because Atomic Boo actually can confuse with its jump scare attack, or even just immobilize us using a multi-boo scare, but none of those statuses ever actually came up. Beyond that, the fight itself wasn't really all too special, though it was funny getting to use Mega Rush and Power Rush on Mario here. I didn't get that very same luxury for Quinn and his quintuplets, but hey, you can't win them all. I learned that all the way back in Chapter 2. As far as my old partners act as far as being threatening, Goombella and Yoshi are harmless. At least to Mario. Goombella was never actually ranked up, and as a result, she doesn't actually do any damage to Mario thanks to Defend Plus. A badge that I actually found in Chapter 4. Koops, meanwhile, is more capable, but he can be flipped over, so yeah. And then there's Flurry, who is by far the strongest, and I likewise choose not to fool around. I equipped String Stomp here because it allows me to lower Flurry's attack power, and that ended up being vital later in the fight because my HP ended up getting very low. So low in fact, I had to use items to keep Mario alive. You can tell because Vivian got knocked out. Funnily enough, at the same time as my partners. Funny how that works out. I guess since Miss Mouse is here, we'll talk about her as well.
No. It's now illegal.
Yeah, she ain't good. Maybe she would be useful if we didn't get her after Vivian, but that much I already highly doubt. And she's definitely worse than Vivian after the fact, because the only way her Love Slap would do any more damage than Vivian's Shade Fist is if we had to fight a boss with at least 5 defense. 4 defense and they'd be equal, 3 or less, and Vivian does more. And neither Kiss Thief or Tease do anything in this challenge either. At best, she's a backup. A bigger matter of interest, however, is being able to cook 2 items at once with Zesty now. So I take advantage of this chance to get some Egg Bombs, an attack item that does 6 damage per throw. They will be useful for the boss of Chapter 5, which is more than I can say for the actual Bob-omb partner, Admiral Bobbery.
Look at you. You who were once so proud. Go now and never return.
At least Miss Mouse in theory can get some use out of moves like Smooch and Love Slap. But basically every move that Bobbery has is useless. Like Flurry's Body Slam, Bomb doesn't do anything, except I guess trigger bingo slots. Meanwhile, Bomb Squad is entirely unreliable as far as where the bombs actually land, and Hold Fast even with action commands is niche at best, let alone without action commands where it lasts for only 1 turn. The most that Bobbery's useful for is being a meat shield, nothing else. He can't even fight against the embers we find on Keelhaul Key. As a matter of fact, the only partner we have that can even hurt them at all is Koops. Wow, Bobbery, you turned out to be a really big freaking dud. Our next matter of interest is Cortez. As said much earlier in the video, I want Mega Rush and Double Pain for a fight, and this in particular is that very fight. To set up Peril for max HP, I have Mario jump on the bone pile, which sees him take damage. Then after Vivian attacks him, Cortez attacks Mario, doing 8 damage because of Double Pain equipped. And with that, we are now in peril. From here on out, we do nothing but attack. I'm not worried about Mario getting hit next turn, because Cortez will always target the back with the exact same move he used against the front target. And the first phase won't last long enough to see his AI loop. For phase 2, I had Mario use his hammer against Cortez's bone pile, so as to force him to charge at the end of the turn. Afterwards, it was just see Vivian and Mario double team Cortez by attacking wherever they wanted to, and the second phase is done for. This leads us into phase 3, where I have Mario jump on Cortez's head, leaving Vivian to then just use Double Dip P and use the 2 Egg Bombs I made earlier specifically to knock Cortez out before he could steal the audience's souls. This, funnily enough, also means that each phase of Cortez's fight lasted 1 turn less than the last. I think we can reasonably call that a pattern. Okay, this is awkward. I forgot that I started the fight with Lord Crump and the X-Knots with Mario having only 1 HP left. Well, I guess I wouldn't necessarily have to start the fight with only 1 HP if I use point swaps and double dip P. I could have started the fight with max HP and 5 FP, double dip the courage meal on Lord Crump to do 4 damage, and then a point swap on Mario to get him into peril and just go from there. But not gonna lie, right now I feel like a fraud. Well, either way, being in peril made Quick Hammer extremely good. It allows me to do 8 damage to both Lord Crump and his X-Knots, being able to do a fairly decent job keeping them suppressed. Though when the X-Knots show up on the ceiling, this is where I had to resort to using a Courage Shell on Mario so that he wouldn't die if, say, we saw forks fall from the ceiling. Which, sure enough, actually did happen. The following turn, while Vivian's doing her damage, I have Mario use a Power Punch on himself, preparing for what's to come soon after. Vivian will finish this phase of Lord Crump off, leaving then Mario to have his turn when the second phase actually comes around. Now, the Stampede of X-Knots hits both Mario and his partner for 5 damage apiece, and Mario does not have the defense to survive against that. But what he does have is just enough damage thanks to Power Punch and the 2 rush badges I have, Power and Mega Rush, dealing 10 damage to both Lord Crump and his X-Knots, and immediately wipe them out. This is critical because Lord Crump and his X-Knots can both attack on the same turn, and when the X-Knots themselves are eliminated, Lord Crump can attack and immediately resummon. We end up having just enough time with Vivian actually being able to survive long enough, as well as just enough turns of Power Punch to actually be able to do enough damage to Lord Crump to actually beat him. As once Vivian is knocked out, we proceed to avenge her by jumping on Lord Crump and ending this battle. You know what they say, teamwork makes the dream work. Following that little scrap, we get the Twilight Blade, and we are now ready to finally begin ranking our partners up to Ultra rank. The partners in question that I choose are Goombella, Koops, Borp, and Vivian. Flurry is actually better at Super rank than Ultra, so we're not going to really worry about her right now. And for Bobbery, we actually don't have enough Shine Sprites to use, so I'll rank him up to Ultra rank later. He'll be Ultra rank before we reach the pit at least. Then there's Miss Mouse, and I had an idea for what I could do with her for the final battle, but it never actually came to fruition. So yeah, she's just there. Meanwhile, I ranked them Goombella mostly because I want the extra HP, but that's really it. Koops is self-explanatory, extra HP, and extra attack power, but he also learns Shell Slam, which sadly enough isn't actually too great. It can help for enemies with super high defense, but otherwise, it's more expensive than Power Shell. It does less damage than Power Shell because the base power uncharged is 0, and unless the target is actually immune to fire, it's just worse than Vivian's Fiery Jinx. At least that move can burn. Meanwhile for Vivian, it's also self-explanatory why I ranked her up. Extra damage is extra damage, I book no argument on this. Finally there's Borp, and the only reason I ranked him up is because Stampede is actually a very useful move just in case we find ourselves needing a third peril partner, which is more likely to happen than you think once we enter into the pit of 100 trials. But that's for a little bit later. I don't want to keep you all waiting though, so let's get Smorg out of the way and lickety-split. Once again, I'm using a point swap here. I know I make it a point to start battles at max HP and FP, but I want to be a bit of a rebel here. Since you can only battle Smorg after you've already rested in bed, meaning your HP and FP would be maxed out, I really want to show off what you can do with FP+. Let's say you wanted to start with 5 FP to use a point swap, but in doing that, that would mean you would not have the FP to use Fiery Jinx, and bear in mind, I don't have any Flower Savers equipped. If your base FP was set to only 5, and you had FP+ equipped, you could go into the battle with only 5 out of 10 max FP. But upon using the point swap to put Vivian into peril, you know, after using double dip and an attack item, you can set up a peril partner in one turn while also having more than 5 FP max, because the excessive amount of FP that Vivian would have will max out your FP. Neat trick, right? What's really funny also is that Smorg as a boss cannot be burned anyway, so Vivian's Shade Fist loses out on absolutely nothing. I find it really funny, by the way, that for this fight, we don't need quick change, because the very next turn after the miasmas are down, Smorg won't do anything. So we put Vivian in front, have her attack again, and switch out to another partner. And because Smorg is below half max HP, we see the claw come out, which means that the main body is still vulnerable. So we bring back in Vivian, have her use Fiery Jinx to knock out the claw, and do some damage to Smorg directly, before spiting the swarm with one more Shade Fist, followed up by a spring jump by Mario. Sayonara, Smorgasbord. Time to think of it. When the remake comes out, do you think the visual of Showstopper will be lightened because of people with epilepsy? That's just a thought that came to mind for me. It's about here I feel we're ready to start the pit of 100 trials. but not before making a quick pit stop to the moon to get 2 badges. Feeling Fine and Feeling Fine P. Where we're going, I think having a bit of protection would be wise. We're bound to encounter lots of nasty status elements from sleep to dizzy to confusion. It really only makes sense. The only problem is that we can't block freeze. That really sucks, but at the same time, it also means that there is always a chance that we can just get completely screwed over. For y'all watching back at home though, at least that means there's always a chance I can lose, and not only that, it means that there's actual suspense the entire time. So for what it's worth, you can look forward to that. My items are fairly typical, some healing items, some attack items, the works really. Now we're ready to spelunk our way down. The first 10 levels of the pit include Galoombas, Spinias, Spanias, Dull Bones, and Fuzzies. Assuming Koops is already at 1 HP, you can just power shell against anything here and call it a day. The badge we're rewarded after completing these levels is Sleepy Stomp, which is a fairly useful badge if we needed to send an enemy to Dreamland. Maybe worth throwing it out if we had nothing better to do on a turn. The 10s host Paragaloompas, Dark Puffs, Pokies, Piters, and Clefs. Most enemies here are guaranteed to be grounded, but the presence of Paragaloompas and Dark Puffs mean Mario will have to do some jumping. Nothing here is particularly worth worrying about though. Our reward for clearing the 10s is Fire Drive, which costs you 5 FP to pause the game without a program pause button. Yeah, don't use this badge. It's basically a soft lock button. In the 20s, we have Spiky Galoombas, Bandits, Boos, Bob-Ombs, and Lakitus with their Spinies. The only levels of note here are levels 23 and 28, as they're the only levels that can potentially show us Lakitus. I just use Vivian here since we have plenty of FP to use Fiery Jinx and knock them out while Koops handles everything else. The spoils for clearing the fights here is Zap Tap, an important find for us. Makes Swampires and Swoopulas pretty much harmless, and is a handy anti-softlock badge so that we can't be trapped by badge bandits. Onto the 30s, the enemies here include Parabuzzies, Dark Koopas, Flower Fuzzies, Shady Koopas, and Hyper Clefs. This is where the Thin plus Ps are at their best. Despite Koops having only 1 HP, most enemies here don't do more than 3 damage unassisted, and the only enemy that can, Dark Koopas, get flipped over by Mario's jump. The only other particular danger that appears here are Parabuzzies, who can be grunted by Mario's jump, and that ends up making them no more dangerous than Spinias. We're still not in any particular danger so long as we can protect our Para partners, though the ante is definitely upped. The treasure on level 40 shows itself to be Pity Flower, a badge that gives 1 FP 30% of the time if Mario gets hurt, which is about as useful as it doesn't sound. Having now reached the 40s, the enemies here consist of Dark Paratroopas, Lava Bubbles, Spiky Parabuzzies, Poison Pokies, and Bulky Bob-Ombs. For safety's sake, I'm equipping Power plus P in addition to my other badges for levels 41 and 46, so Vivian's Fiery Jinx OKOs Dark Paratroopas if I get the feeling Mario's in danger of getting knocked out, but I tend to prefer jumping on them since they're pretty harmless when they're on their backs. Zap Tap is also continuing to see use in walling Spiky Parabuzzies. The enemies without shells meanwhile won't last past turn 1. Yeah, this is one way to circumvent the inability to guard. We just make it so enemies can't hurt us. That's how that stuff works. Right? Now that we've hit the midway point of the pit, we've gotten the Strange Sack, a key item that grants us the means to hold 20 items in total as opposed to only 10. Honestly, a vital key item to find, and one we'll be making sure to use well. Part of me wants to go back and stock up on more items, but we do find Charlatan here, and I get a bunch of Thunder Rages. Future me will thank the past me for this. The monsters of the 50s are Badge Bandits, Ice Puffs, Moon Clefs, Dark Boos, and Red Chomps. Power alone will get us far here, but Badge Bandits have the bulk to survive a hit. And their badge stealing can often prove to be really bad if given the chance, so I let Mario in front if there's a notable number of them, since he can't be stolen from thanks to Zap Tap. Red Chomps and Dark Boos are business as usual though, and if Moon Cliffs are present, we can always resort to Quake Hammer, but Shell Slam is pretty effective here too. FP would be a concern if not for how frequently we level up down here, no doubt thanks to how I was only level 8 when I started. The reward for the 50s being completed though is a second double dip badge, giving Mario the triple dip skill, allowing him to use 3 items in a single turn for the rather exuberant cost of 8 FP. Decent, but we can probably do better. Down through the 60s, we have Dark Lakitus, Dark Wizards, Dry Bones, Frost Piranhas, and Dark Cross. Here's where most enemies here have lots of HP, and in the case of Dark Lakitus, are airborne and actually have the HP to take a Fiery Jinx with health to spare. Power Shell does still have the necessary damage to one-shot most of the enemies here, but we're starting to reach the threshold of where Power Shell will no longer be able to cut it. The worst of the lot, however, are the Dark Craws that are up to fight us. They've got a stupidly high 20 HP and do 6 damage. Outside of the unreliable Showstopper, there's no real way to KO them quickly, so we have to hope they don't target Mario too much. We have a decent amount of HP and can afford to equip at least some defend pluses, but our BP is still something we have to manage carefully. By the way, if ever I misinput an appeal, we're gonna have fun trying to fix a blunder like that, because I'm still not letting myself match the A button when running away. Fatigue is fun! What we earn for surviving these levels is Double Dip P, which you should already know what this does, but if you wanted to ask anyway, I would be most grateful as comments are good for the YouTube algorithm. The 70s hosts Wizards, Dark Koopa Trolls, Chain Chomps, Phantom Embers, and Swoopulas. Zap Tap is back on, and so is Spike Shield. This is otherwise another set of levels much like the single digits where Koops is overall superior as both Chain Chomps and Phantom Embers cannot be hurt by fire at all. Wizards are the odd ones out where Fiery Jinx is better, but you're generally relying on Koops for here. I even rely on Miss Mouse sometimes, because her ability to pierce can make her the only partner that can deal damage that I wouldn't mind leveling up with. And Bobbery tends to take the hits for most of my partners so as to have his damage healed when we level up. In fact, it's not uncommon that he gets KO'd while sponging HP. I'd like to add that I started my journey through the pit without life shrooms, because odds are my partners would eat them all up before Mario even tasted danger, which is starting to show us a good call. Dark Koopa Trolls, despite being more defensive and having more HP, they're vulnerable to being flipped over. The pit's starting to get pretty hairy now, and the reward for surviving down here is sadly useless. Bump Attack prevents battling with enemies that are too weak to give star points. Something that's specifically not a thing for the pit, so we're just moving on. We're in really deep now. The 80s conceal within Spunyas, Dark Bristles, Piranha Plants, and Arantulas. The good news is most enemies here only target the front, so Defend plus P is once again worthwhile. We're also by now able to give Mario lots of HP, so he's actually able to take hits if Arantulas have it out for him. We otherwise are just doing the same thing as we've always been doing down here. Power Shell, Shell Slam, Fiery Jinx, and in between enemy turns, Bobbery tends to take damage. I would before try to divide the pain between him, Goombella, and Flurry, but now, Bobbery is the only partner who realistically can last long down here. Trust me, it is a lot. Fortunately, it's often easy to calculate how much damage gets taken, so we're able to get through without too many issues, where leveling up a Paro partner is decently easy to avoid, though the frequency of being attacked by Rabbit Hearts can be really annoying. I appreciate the frequency of movers though, despite never using them. The less Arantulas I have to fight, the better. The reward for the 80s being completed is mildly useful. Lucky Day is 7 BP and gives a 25% chance for Mario to avoid attacks. It can come in handy in a pinch. We're at the home stretch now though with the 90s featuring Elite Wizards, Poison Buffs, Swampires, Bobulks, and the infamous Amazy Daisy. The last of those 5 are what my Fright Masks would be useful for if I had them. Yeah, I wanted to bring Fright Masks, but that was for if I went back to suck up on more items. Fortunately, we had tons of items ready between Shooting Stars and Thunder Rages, and we ended up leveling up a lot in the 90s, which I'm now dubbing as Star Point Heaven. Because there is no shortage of enemies that dump oodles of star points, and we level up a lot as a result. The large quantity of items we have also help make Elite Wizards considerably more manageable. Koops combined with Shooting Stars makes quick work of quintuplets, and the frequency of Amazy Daisies being paired with Poison Puffs makes opting for our items fairly frequent a decision we make. Bobulks are just eradicated by Vivian's Shade Fist, and Swampires can't win against us thanks to Zap Tap. Before long, we arrived at level 99 with a level up just before Bonetail, who sadly ended up being pretty much a joke. I guess it's my fault for relying so heavily on quick change and rush badges, but after several hours down here, it's hard to not want to play it safe. There's a reason I waited until now to try to pit it all after all. But this fight was just switching Vivian in, using Shade Fist for 12 damage, switching her out for Bobbery, and having Mario just do whatever. I was worried about being frozen, but it happened only once and to Bobbery. And when that happened, I just sweet treated to cure him. For those who were wondering, I used Earth Shimmer earlier in the pit too. Helps for Bob instead of high defense, I learned. As far as when our HP drops, I have a fair few shroom sticks and ultra shrooms that I got from the Pianta parlor. Didn't really need the FP though, and it makes me wonder why I even bothered to cook them at all. And yeah, this fight, well, it was fairly underwhelming. I originally wanted to take a power punch down with me, it'd make the fight slightly faster, but I forgot. Shame because it'd probably give me a reason to equip double dip with the surplus of BP I had. Yeah, I even had more BP than I knew what to do with. And keep in mind, I started the pit here at level 8, came out at level 20-freaking-6. But, oh well. I guess it's true what they say. It's about the journey, not the destination. Let's finally take out Magnus on Grapple 2. Once again, I have an idea on how to use Flurry in this boss fight. And once again, we're not leading with her, but this time it's not Coops, rather we're leading with Vivian. Once again, business as usual. Attack with Vivian, attack with Mario, keep repeating until the X punches come out, and Vivian attacks one last time, and then we bring in Flurry. Since the X punches do 9 damage apiece, and then Magnus 2 has the spinning disc of doom that does 6 damage to both Flurry and Mario, we see Flurry get dropped into peril from max HP. From there, with both our Power Rush and Mega Rush P badges equipped, in addition to just 1 Power plus P, Flurry will heal 9 HP from using Lip Lock. Now obviously, that's way less than 25. But thanks to an item called the Courage Shell, as well as a handy dandy badge in Last Stand P, we can drastically reduce the damage that Flurry would be taking, allowing her to fall back into peril after 1 more turn of attacking. And we keep doing this until we have only 1 more turn of defense up, where on Mario's turn, I give Flurry both a Power Punch and a Hot Sauce courtesy of Double Dip. This is because I know for a fact that the audience cannon will be used since Magnus 2's HP is below half, and thanks to the Courage Shell, it can't hurt Flurry at all. So the X punches themselves have to knock Flurry into peril immediately. I figured here I would just let Flurry get knocked out and use a Shooting Star, but I forgot to actually bring one. Which is a problem because if Flurry gets knocked out, Mario does not have the defense to survive an audience cannon attack, and that means there's a chance we could actually lose. So I use my HP drain on Magnus 2 instead, which naturally would mean that Flurry gets knocked out, and then instead of making the logical decision of switching out Flurry for Vivian and having her use the Ultra Shroom and Mario, I for some reason use Fiery Jinx, doing absolutely nothing worthwhile at all, and I only managed to win because Magnus 2 did not use the audience cannon. Let the record show, I cannot think on my feet. Embarrassment from that blunder aside though, we have all 7 crystal stars and can actually open the 1,000-year door. Hopefully I can get through without getting buried. First up, Dark Bones. I feel like Fiery Jinx from Vivian would be really useful here. It doesn't really do damage without extra power behind it, but Mario's Quick Hammer Mortar makes up for that. We do just enough damage to number the turns the Dry Bones will be left alive. From there, we have basically all the HP and defense necessary to sponge whatever they can throw at us, and once the Dry Bones are gone, we finish off Dark Bones with a single hammer strike. Another one bites to dust. And speaking of bites, look at the choppers on Gloomtail. Looks freaking massive. But yeah, Gloomtail, let's fight him. Once again, I find myself using Shell Shield, if only because I know for a fact that the Poison Rep will be used turn 1, and we have FP to spare anyway. Immediately after, I bring in Vivian, because I need her to take a lot of damage from Gloomtail. And with P up, D down P equipped and no defensive badges, she's guaranteed to take 9 damage per hit. To guarantee, however, that she actually makes it to peril, I have Mario also feed her a Kupasa. This gives her just enough HP to guarantee surviving 4 attacks from Gloomtail. And once she does fall to 1 HP left, we attack one last time to drop Gloomtail before the threshold where he actually will use his Earthquake attack, and just keep attacking with Mario and Vivian alike. I mean, yeah, Vivian will get knocked out after that, but Gloomtail's so low on HP that it just takes 2 more jumps for Mario to win. Guys, genuine question. Do you think in future videos I make for this game, I should restrict myself from using Mega Rush P as often as I do? I'm starting to think that maybe it's a little over-centralizing. Just know that if I do, I may rely on items more often, so keep that in mind when you tell me in the comments down below. Onward and downwards, we're fighting the Shadow Sirens rematch. With how much RNG is involved in this fight, and the really nasty status elements we would not be able to do anything about, you bet you're behind I'm gonna cheese it as fast as I can. I must ask, Beldum, are you seeing anyone? Because I think you and Eternity would be a perfect match. So who's next on the naughty list? Oh yeah, Grotus. Here's what I'll do. I'll turn all your Grotus X's to coal, while repeatedly having Mario jump on your scepter. And all you're gonna do is try to do stuff with your scepter and not do anything at all with it. So this is why what I'm doing is actually working. Both Mario and Vivian are fighting with their own variants of Power and Mega Rush. I also have Triple Dip for both Mario and Vivian, and as you can see, point swaps. We are once again manipulating to fall into peril early, but not to immediately fall to 1 HP left. I'm letting Grotus help us with that. With 15 max FP and the Flower Saver apiece, we both have just enough HP where Grotus' lightning will barely fail to KO us. And Grotus always uses lightning turn 1 because that's how its AI works. And since we're being backed by gradual syrups as well, we could just have Vivian repeatedly use Fiery Jinx, which does damage to Grotus and destroys all of his Grotus X's immediately, and Mario, while he's also in peril, keeps jumping at Grotus' scepter. Which, because he does at least 10 damage to it, it guarantees that Grotus will not be able to attack the next turn. I go into detail about this in another video called TTYD is broken. You can check it out later. As for Grotus though, yeah, this guy is busted. Though to my surprise, I don't level up here, which is a problem because my HP is as a result only 1 going into Bowser and Kammy Koopa, which would mean that we would die basically guaranteed on turn 1. For what it's worth though, it's a good thing I have Quick Change equipped. Sadly, my first attempt here went about as bad as it could possibly have gone. I'm not able to actually finish off Kammy Koopa, Mario just does not do enough damage, and then Fog comes in, which does allow Vivian to survive 1 more turn, but then both Vivian and Mario miss their attacks against Kammy, meaning I'm not able to finish her off. And even when I do, Bowser is no longer locked into only using 1 attack. I mean, yeah, I could have used an Ultra Shroom to heal Mario to max HP and very easily have actually won this fight through attrition alone, but like, I already have the resources to guarantee being able to beat Grotus. I'd rather just try again and try using less items. So I let Bowser win and I just went to try it again. Really, all I need to do is just coax off of the HP I get off of my Slow Shroom, while Bowser just repeatedly tries to bite me and cannot outdamage the Slow Shroom I'm actually healing off of, and then just proceed to keep jumping until he gets knocked out. It's only here I also learned something new about this game. When Bowser does his ground pound on Mario, even if he doesn't guard it, Mario doesn't lose an action. I guess it's due to the recoil damage that Bowser's taking. I do realize before long though that I don't have the damage output using my jump to knock Bowser out before I actually run out of HP from the Soul Stream recovery, and out of desperation I start using Power Jump instead of again just using an Ultra Shroom. And the first time I use Power Jump, it causes the stage jets to all point towards Mario. And the second time I try using Power Jump, they fire and do damage to Mario, meaning Bowser can actually finish me off. Well, ain't that a kick in the teeth? So I went and ran it back. I took off a Power Plus P instead of equipping a regular Power Plus for Mario, because thanks to Bowser and Kammy, we see Mario fight more regardless. And sure enough, it actually worked. We now do just enough damage where we're not really hurting using Power Jump more than once. As a matter of fact, after the first Power Jump and I see the jets pointing towards Mario, I do nothing but jump until I know for a fact that Bowser will get knocked out on the next turn. Where I then use Power Jump, and wouldn't you know it, the Foggers activate again, freeze Mario solid, and Bowser knocks himself out from recoil damage. Looking like Milo Murphy's Law, because you can bet I came prepared this time around. And there ends yet another chapter in my life. Or so I thought, but there's still the Shadow Queen, and we may as well take her up right now. Before beginning the final battle though, I want to show you my partners. You may have noticed that Koops is no longer Ultra Rank, but now Super Rank. This is because I actually have an idea on how to use Koops in this fight that actively depends on him having less max HP. You'll see soon enough, but for now, let's begin the actual final battle. Leading with Vivian, she does 7 damage with her Shade Fist, which is already very good. Meanwhile, I have Mario in the back, and he's using Soft Stomp for the express purpose of just making sure that the Shadow Queen's defense doesn't get increased. This way, Vivian's damage output isn't hindered. We can't do much about the attack up, but I'm not really worried about that. We just keep attacking until the Shadow Queen falls below 90 HP. Enter the invincible phase. 3 attacks on 3 separate turns later, and it's done. Ushering in the true final battle. So what I planned on doing here was just doing as much damage as possible in the first 2 turns, and then bringing in Coops at the end of turn 3 to get hit by the Dark Pulse, which will immediately drop him into peril, as the attack does 14 damage, which is 1 less than Coops' max HP. But then what happens, which is really freaking stupid, is that Fog comes in after my partner's turn already happened, which actually makes the Dark Pulse miss Coops but still hit Mario, which is literally the worst freaking thing that could happen here, since that's pretty much the only time we ever get a chance to see the Dark Pulse be used, and it's the only turn where the damage is actually predictable. Now, reasonably speaking, I would have no idea what to do because I have no means of getting into peril anymore, and I didn't buy any extra point shots from Glitzville either, so now what? Well, what is that there actually is a hidden point swap we can find in the Palace of Shadow, and I just used that. I mean, I did have to still lower my FP to only 1 before using the point swap, but once I did, the pace of this fight sped up significantly. This fight very well could have gone either way if not for the point swap, but thanks to it, we're able to do some actually noteworthy damage to the Shadow Queen, in addition to suppressing both her left and right hands, which also means it'd be a lot harder for her to heal off of us. And good thing too, because I have only so many live streams I can rely on. And it isn't like my partners can take much abuse either. Without being able to guard, we tend to lose a lot of HP very quickly. Even Bobbery sees himself in danger of getting knocked out in only 3 if not 2 attacks. Though inversely, the presence of Fog did mean that we actually had a use for Bobbery because his appeal can blow it away, which is an attribute I really appreciate right now. And to end it all, in the spirit of accommodations, I brought in Miss Mouse for the first and final time to do damage, and her Love Slap does literally perfect damage to the Shadow Queen, ending the fight, and the entirety of the No Action Commands challenge in a victory. I'd like to thank Cinderstar, MB Switchy, Nintendo Sixty-Jorts, Sarnova, and Splashy for being channel members. It really means a lot to me. And for all others watching this video, thank you for watching. This is Phantom A, signing out.